I fell in love with the Ordway family last year when we came for Quantum Shift 4 in November or December of, I think it was 18. And I felt like this is a family I want to journey with, and I'm so thankful that we get to do this and go deeper. And many of you we know, and some of you are new acquaintances that I believe will be friends. There's something that happens in these types of settings where we come together to worship together and to grow together that remains. It's fruit that remains that's going to happen here this weekend. And I don't know how you got here. Some of you drove. I think you're from this state or the surrounding area, but some of us flew in. And I don't know if you were flying yesterday. It was a rough day to fly. If you were coming anywhere from the northeast or the eastern seaboard, because there were storms all up and down the eastern seaboard, which made a lot of delays. Our pilots couldn't even. We were at the airport we were supposed to fly out of to get to St. Louis, and which was Charlotte, and they told us the pilots haven't even left yet from Chicago. So it's never a comforting thing when the time you're supposed to leave, that's now been pushed back 2 hours, you get notified that the pilots haven't even left where they're coming from to take you. And so there's a little bit of travel OCD in me, which is I know the process of boarding and not boarding and how long it takes to get everybody seated once we start boarding. And when you travel too much, you get some details in your head that you don't really need in life, but remain. And Danielle, when she comes, she's going to vent her frustrations of my day with her through a tough travel time. But one of the things I thought of during these many hours of delays and more delays was how the pilots let you know about the journey to come. We're heading to, let's say St. Louis, and we're gonna get up and we're gonna cruise at this altitude, and then we're gonna turn southeast or west or whatever, and southwest, I guess it would be, or northwest, and we're gonna head in this direction. They tell you what you're gonna fly over and what you're gonna see, but they never tell you why you're going because they don't know, and they shouldn't know. It would be creepy if they did, but. Like one of those pilots today, I sense to share with you that there are so many things that have been stirring in me for years now that seem to kind of come together for some common denominators and some threads that run through everything to be deposited here. And this morning I received a very significant key for all of this to kind of come together, and I'm very excited because I got this for me. And maybe you can also leave with it today. And I felt like we should start there. It has to do with the life of Solomon and the kingly grace that was on his life. And I think whatever it is that God's going to be doing and wherever it is we're heading, we're going to have to take note and understand what happened during the reign of Solomon and why he was the king he was. And in the story I want to tell you today, pulling all these pieces together, this flight that we're going to go on together. I know where we're heading, but I don't know all of what we're going to fly over. But it's to tell you the backstory to Solomon's birth, which had a lot to do with relationship. Some really good and some really bad. Because if you remember, Solomon was the son of David and Bathsheba. How did that all come about and why? That's the part that I want to come back to. But let's begin with the heart of this King David, which was a heart for relationship. This is a conference or a coming together of us. And greetings to all of you who are watching us via live stream, by the way. Thanks so much for making the sacrifice and taking the time to also be with us. We're so envious of you not having to fly to come here. But David had such a heart for relationship. I know this is about relationship more than it is about marriage, because a lot of you who are here and who are watching are not married or have never been married, or this is not for marriage. They made it very clear to us. And look at those beautiful pictures of all of us. it says sexy, and under it is laundry. I don't know if you can see it, but that's one of the books that I wrote, and it has nothing to do with sex or laundry. I always have to clarify that because people get either triggered or really excited for all the wrong reasons. The book is about the empowerment of women in the kingdom. And then Danielle and I wrote the sequel to Sexy Laundry because it did so well, and it had to do with why women haven't been empowered as they should have been, and it's called Dirty Laundry. Now, we have neither of those books here because we ordered a bunch and they arrived, but someone put them out prematurely and they disappeared. They get snatched up. But we do have thumb drives, and I have to show you this because I'm very happy about it. These are the thumb drives I would be buying if I was going to a conference to get a thumb drive. It's not, Danielle had nothing to do with the selection of this. This is 100% the vain part of me. These are Swarovski crystals that you're seeing, ladies and gentlemen. And these thumb drives have a lot of things on them that we make available for just one price. And the funds for all of these, by the way, and the reason I'm so bold to share this is they go to help the education, to provide for the education of a lot of children that we're supporting. It's just a long story. But some of them are made out of wood, and they come in these beautiful walnut boxes. And then this one is like the Valentine special. It's a heart with the Swarovski crystals on it, and then when you open it is the thumb drive. So you can even wear it. I'm not going to do it because if my Green Beret friends ever saw this, I would never live it down. But you can wear it, and you can, so there's different colors. There's the pink. There's the, what I would call sea blue. Just kidding, it's blue. And red, blue, and the silver. So on these are those books. Sexy Laundry, I narrate it, and also Weaponized Honor and Tables and Platforms that have been bestsellers, and then several series of teachings. And one of them is Solomon Academy, which has to do with the encounters I've had with the King Solomon in that realm, not here, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. And so when we were told to come and invited to come, it was clear that this isn't just about marriage and about couples. It's about relationships. And marriage is a part of what relationships encompasses. And so what we're going to see today is an effort by the King David. This is where the story begins, to reach out and establish relationship with someone because he had relationship with this man's father. And it says in 2 Samuel 10, it happened after this that the king of the people of Ammon died, and Hanun, his son, reigned in his place. Then David said, I will show kindness to Hanun, the son of Nahash, as his father showed kindness to me. Now this is a man of honor. We know that David carried a significant measure of the honor and the love and the expression of God's love that's in God's heart by way of honor. And this is him wanting to express that honor, but also reaching out to establish relationship with the son of a king he had relationship with. So David sent by the hand of his servants to comfort him concerning his father. So when it says he sent by the hand of his servants, whenever you find in the scriptures that something is sent by the hand of someone, there is a gift that's going forth. And David sent something to this king. We don't know what it was, but it was something that was sent. And that's why when they were going to go look for the prophet Samuel, the seer, to ask him about something, where the animals of Saul's father had gone, I think it was one of their beasts was gone or some of their animals were gone. They went to seek Samuel. They said, we will not go before the man of God empty-handed. We must bring something. And when the king sends something to Elisha to ask it whether he would live or die, he sends by the hand of his servant every good gift of Damascus, everything that. So he's sending something, because when kings make a move, they're always going to precede that with a gift, because it's a gift of honor. That I've taught this in so many places, but I'll just touch on it very briefly. When you give something, you're not just recognizing the honor that you have for the person you're giving it to, but it also is a reflection of the kingly grace that's on your life. It demonstrates to us what you carry. And so when kings are moving, they're giving gifts and bringing gifts that reflect the measure of the grace and the goodness and the abundance of God that's in their lives. We want to give gifts, Danielle and I, that represent who we are and represent the level to which God has brought us in relationship and also in standing and stature. So David, out of all of these things that I just described, he sends a gift by his servants to this son of Nahash. His name was Hanan. And David's servants came into the land of the people of Ammon. Now, if this was a movie, this is where the music turns and gets this like weird sound that lets you know something bad's about to happen. You with me? Enjoying the flight? And the princes of the people of Ammon said to Hanan, their lord, "Do you think that David really honors your father because he has sent comforters to you?" Amazing. They misrepresented and misunderstood what David was doing. They thought that David is doing something to get to them. But David was sending something to build something with them. Has David not rather sent his servants to you to search the city, to spy it out, and to overthrow it? Therefore Hanan took David's servants, shaved off half of their beards, which is hugely offensive in Hebrew culture. Not just the whole beard, half of it. Cut off their garments in the middle at their buttocks and sent them away. So imagine this, that they are sent out into the public with their robes cut at the buttocks, which means whatever's beneath the buttocks is exposed. They were basically naked from the waist down, exposed in front of the people with half of their beards shaved. It was huge dishonor. When David had tried to honor. There's a difference between honor, dishonor, and lack of honor. Lack of honor is where there hasn't been education about honor. So much of the church, we're experiencing lack of honor. Somebody hasn't taught people how to properly honor. This is a house of honor. We come here to roses. We come here to amazing hospitality that makes us feel at home and pulls the best out of us to deposit, because what we carry is being honored, even by the comments that are made, the way we're received, the way many of you have received us since we've come here. There's honor that's given to us, which actually releases the best of what God's put in us for you. Because that's what honor does. It brings out the best in everyone. But there's a lack of honor that we experience in many places, and we still have a job, so to speak, because we need to train and equip the sons for honor. But then dishonor is the opposite of what honor is. It's when we actually take something that's meant to be so empowering and transformational, and we do the exact opposite. This is what happened here. David sends a gift to express a desire to continue relationship with this kingdom because of the king who just passed, and to comfort the son of that king. And the son of that king listens to the liars in his kingdom and those who misunderstand and misrepresent David's intentions, and he dishonors David and Israel. Therefore, when they told David, he sent to meet them, because the men were greatly ashamed. So David now hears about this. He sends comforters, individuals, to meet these men who have been dishonored. And the king said, and what he said is so key for us today in this opening session. And the king said, "Wait at Jericho until your beards have grown, and then return." So Jericho is a border city. Jericho was the place they would have to come into to come back into Israel. So he says, once you cross over into Israel, stay in the city of Jericho and wait there until your beards have grown, and then return to Jerusalem. This is so key because they are broken. And in an attempt to reach out and establish a new relationship, they have been dishonored and there's been a violation of something. And so David, I believe by the Spirit, says, you need to do nothing. This is for someone. You need to stay still and do nothing. You need to get refreshed and restored and then return. So we can, on this Valentine's Day, do the roses and the cards that float midair and all that, and we can portray something that may not really be the reality each of us is facing today. We can try to put on a beautiful image of ourselves and of our marriages if we're married, or of our households, or of our lives as individuals if we're a single person, and we can put on something that portrays something that's not truly genuine. But I know enough about the Ordways and many of you to know that we want it real, and I like to say it the way Danielle says it sometimes, even raw. Which means we may say some things and hear some things that may not necessarily be what someone expects of us in a setting like this, on a day like this, but we have to keep it real. And what's real is, for some of us in this room, we have to start at the place of waiting, getting well, and then returning into the pursuit of relationship, because relationships have hurt us. The pursuit of relationship has brought us face to face with things like treason, backstabbings, murmurings against us, gossip, false accusations, allegations, and on and on and on, which are things that have caused pain. And if we don't deal with that pain, and if we don't confront that head on, how can we start to build on talking about all these wonderful things we're going to talk about regarding relationships today and this weekend? I mean, we have a lot to share with you. We have a lot of maybe nuggets, keys from heaven about relationships and how to establish them, and the value of them, and the price we pay for them, and the way we build them, and the work that goes into them, and the wonderful, wonderful benefits of relationships. But how can we do that if our beards are shaved and our buttocks are bare? What a word. This is why this is so critical. Because this is the key that I got this morning when all of this started to come together for me. This is 10 years of engaging with the life of Solomon. And this is one conclusion I've come to today that I've never come to before. This morning, shortly after the card incident, it's the first verse of chapter 11. Listen to this. It happened in the spring of the year, at the time when kings go out to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the people of Ammon. It was that battle. It was that war that started because of dishonor. When David reached out for relationship and they turned him down with such dishonor, he sent the entire army of Israel after them, but stayed. And he stayed with the rejection and the resentment and the bitterness that comes from unmet expectations and from dishonor. And it wasn't dealt with. How do I know? It happened one evening that David arose from his bed and walked on the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman bathing. And the woman was very beautiful to behold, and I think you know the rest of the story. It was that story. It was this moment that led to this moment. He sent them out to fight a war that should have never had to be fought if there had been honor. He sent an army to fight a battle and defeat a people who turned honor into dishonor, who turned the seeking and reaching out for relationship into something that was the very opposite of what David was trying to accomplish. And on the rebound from that, he finds himself alone, without counselors, without proper accountability measures, without a purpose and a cause for which he was born to fight and to prevail for the name of his God. This is the David who killed Goliath. This is the David of whom they wrote a song. Saul has slain his thousands, David his tens of thousands. This is the David who did all things well, but he finds himself vulnerable because relationship hasn't gone the way he wanted it to go. So he goes the other way. Sees a woman bathing, calls for her, finds out it's Bathsheba. Many commentaries have presented this as a violent act of taking her and violating her in not consensual sexual relationship. And out of it comes the conception of a child, which David tries to hide, ends up causing the death of her husband Uriah by pulling away from him in a very uncharacteristic way for a king who's established by fighting battles well, has him basically murdered so he can cover up what he does. And all these terrible things happen, things that in no culture and no society they could ever be acceptable. And out of it comes a child that dies. Because Nathan the prophet comes and says to him, there's a man who had all these sheep, and there's another man who had just one ewe lamb, and tells him the whole story. And David says, this is outrageous. Who could possibly do this? This man must be put to death. And Nathan says, you are that man. You have done this. And it's too late now, because this child will die. And David fasts. Remember, he fasts and he doesn't eat anything, and he pleads with Yahweh for the child to live, but the child dies. And they say to him, why did you not eat? Why did you not do all this? And he said, because I just counted on the goodness of God that it might live. And it doesn't. But it says, after the child died and David did eat, he then goes into his wife Bathsheba, whom he now takes on as his wife, and she conceives a son, and they name him Solomon. And actually his name is Jedediah, which means beloved of God, because it says in the scripture, and the Lord loved him. Yahweh loved Solomon. I want you to think about how good our God is, how wonderful of a Father we have in him, that out of this mess that begins with a botched attempt for relationship comes one of the greatest human beings that ever walked this earth, by way of stature, by way of a reflection of the kingly grace that's supposed to be on the sons of God, on those of us who are called by his name, the wisest man, the richest man, one who demonstrates to us a standard that we can live by. Do you understand that under Solomon's reign, we have for the first time and perhaps the only time in history, a precedent? Can I use this term? We have attorneys here. So, a precedent on the earth of the Abrahamic blessing. This one component of the Abrahamic blessing, which is what? That through you, all the families of the earth will be blessed. Remember when the Queen of Sheba came and brought to Solomon these gifts? She brought to him gold and spices and precious stones and put all these things before him. And remember that she's bringing gold to Solomon. They are literally paving the streets with it. But she brings the best that she can bring him out of the level that she's at that time. And he receives her gifts. And it says he answers all her questions and gave her everything she asked for, even more than what she brought to the King Solomon. So the Queen of Sheba brought him the best that she could bring from her country, which means she drew from the resources of her land and brought something to Israel, but went back with more than what she came with, which means If all the kings of the earth did this and came to seek the wisdom and the counsel of Solomon, which they did, if he did the same thing for all of them, that means more went back to those nations than what came from those nations to Israel. Which means for the first time and only time, we have all the families of the earth potentially blessed because of what's happening in Israel. It's that king that came out of this union that was so wrong because God loved him. I think when we are violated and when we are wronged in relationship, we are so quick to cut ties to say these people are bad, we want nothing to do with them anymore. And God said, I want everything to do with this household. I'm going to take this wrong and I'm going to make it so right that the whole earth is going to benefit from it. For 10 years, I've engaged with this reality of this kingdom that is a beacon of light to the nations, a kingdom that is established in such a way where we have a precedent of what Yahweh intended for all the nations of the earth to behold and to receive from. And it's this reign of this king who gets it. And for as long as he got it, he did right and he did well, and he established something that is to be aspired for in all of us. It's when he started making the wrong trades and the wrong associations that things went the wrong way. But there's really something to this. And out of it comes the right relationships and the right government. I so appreciated the government that was demonstrated this morning. It's a very small thing that I'm going to tell you right now, but to heaven it makes all the difference. I'll tell you what it was. We started right on time. No, it's a big deal. And in our church, we do that. When we start, sometimes we have 4 people in the sanctuary that within the next half hour to 45 minutes, when all the people who want to avoid the worship because it's too loud and all that stuff come, it's too loud, it's too long. You know, the people that show up 45 minutes late to just catch the tail end of the glory because I'm here for the word, brother. You don't have them here, but we have them in Connecticut. It'll be time to start the service, and there'll be 4 to 6 people, and we will say we're going to start on time because we're honoring our word, which is on a sign outside the church that says services begin at 10. And it's actually 10 there as it was 10 here when Greg got up and said we're going to start this right now, and there weren't all of us here. Some were still talking in the foyer. Some were mingling here. I was beholding all my bling stuff. Just these Swarovski crystals, I tell you. Just kidding. And he started the meeting and says, we're going to start, because that's when we said we're going to start. That's government. That's good government. I feel safe in an environment like that. And I feel empowered in an environment like that. Those are the kinds of things that are small things that make a big difference. And there's already an amazing precedent of all this. There was a government that all the kings of the earth left their kingdoms and made the pilgrimage to go see. And each king, it says, brought his or her gift to him. They brought something to honor what was there. And it was all relationship building material that we're going to be talking about throughout this weekend. But it has to start with those of us that need to stand still and wait. Those who need to get refreshed and healed up, rejuvenated, mended, and then return. Remember, there's always the return. You're going to go back to something from this, and you're going to go back many times stronger than you were before you left to come here. Good trade, Daniel. By the way, about this money stuff, is it okay if I say something about that? I appreciated Greg explaining what this is, and this is how we give in these types of conferences. And I want you to know that Danielle and I are very happy to come here and to sow into this meeting and leave with nothing. Like, we're very happy to do that. I know this is a house of honor. I know that probably won't be the case, but if it is, we're very happy to do it. And we are at a place because of the goodness of the Lord where we can do this. We can go places and minister without any need to leave with something. So this isn't about money for us. Even the things that I tell you about, the teachings and all that, those funds are distributed and they go out to help us with our, like, empowerment habit, I call it, like our desire to see especially young children trained up and raised up in the fear and admonition of the Lord. And so this isn't about money, but money does communicate something about where we are and how we engage with things and how we're carrying that which has been put in our hand. What's been put in our hand is relationship. Like, this relationship is of utmost importance to us. We put everything into it. For us to go out on a date on Valentine's Day or night, or once a week when we go out on our date when Danielle gets out of work on Friday, we go out to a thing called happy hour. And of course we drink beverages that are not in any way fermented or distilled. Undistilled whiskeys and unfermented wines. You know how they have those in every bar in town. We don't sow into our marriage by going out on a date. That's the product of our reaping from our marriage. We don't work on our marriage by going out on a date. It's the product of a marriage that we worked on for 24 years now diligently. And we get to reap the benefit of it by going out on a date. But we work at it. We're going to talk about some of those things and some of those dynamics and some of those values. We work at it, and sometimes when we get stuck and we get hurt, and we've been hurt together by some of the blows of relationships that went the wrong way. And we've hurt each other by some of the blows we've inadvertently or inappropriately maybe dealt each other, not violence, of course, or anything like that, but sometimes we hurt each other without realizing that's what we're doing. But we're learning how to cultivate relationship the right way, and we're learning how to stand still and wait, get well, and then get back into the saddle, get back into the battlefront, on the frontmost part of the front lines, without fear, without trepidation, with wisdom and understanding that has come from the process of having journeyed through these things. It could have been a totally different story if David had processed what happened with the Ammonites in a different way, and a war hadn't started, and this terrible incident with Bathsheba hadn't happened. But then would Solomon had come. God has worked all things out for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And that's what you are. That's what we are. We're his. We belong to him. His mark is on our hearts. His flame is in our hearts. His desire is expressed through our lives. And he will see to it that all things have worked together and will work together for the good. And if you are here today, before we even move any further in this, and you have just come out of some backstabbings, some treason, some of the nasty things that come out of relationships that didn't have the right foundation or somewhere went awry, then today, even in the next few moments, I invite you to open up your heart for the healing balm, the balm of Gilead to be applied, for the goodness of our God to be poured into our lives to be healed. We have been through some things, Danielle and I, in our ministry and in our lives with other people that could have taken us out in our marriage and also in ministry. We had moments when literally blank checks were put in front of us to fill in the zeros and leave this and go do something totally different with people in the business arena or government, and it was not the will of God for us to do any of that, and we knew it. But had we rebounded from the hurt wrongly, we would have filled out the zeros, and we would have accomplished zero, I believe, out of what Yahweh intended for us to accomplish. Even this opportunity to be here with you this weekend. This is precious to us. This is sacred ground for me right now. Because I see the coming together of these things that I've been engaging with, this amazing reign and this awesome king that trained up his son in wisdom, and all of these amazing things that we aspire to and admire and talk about in Christian conferences so much. And there was so much wrong that was infused in all of it that God worked out for good, to where when we even talk about Solomon, we don't even acknowledge that he was the product of the union of David and Bathsheba. Because it's dealt with, and we don't see that as a stigma anymore. We don't see that as a bad thing anymore. We see that God worked it out for good, and he brought a son that he loved, and he called him Jedediah. There's a Jedediah for you out of everything that's happened to bring you here with what you're carrying. And I encourage you to leave it here today, and to let the healing process continue or begin, so that then relationship can continue to be built without fear or prejudice, without any woundedness, without trauma, without reservation. You ever meet people that are, this is so New England, we live in New England, and people are so reserved and so suspicious and cautious. Like, if the people that are in our town saw this, like money on the floor, I mean, imagine going through a Connecticut airport to come here with stacks of dollar bills and a beautiful woman by your side. It just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. They don't understand it. They're so suspicious. It's because of the hurt. It's because of the hurts that haven't been dealt with that we deal with so much brokenness. And I think we're going to do so much better than what the body of Christ and people that call themselves people of the kingdom have done. Because we're going to deal with this stuff. We're going to wait and do nothing. Sometimes you need to do nothing. And sometimes you need to say nothing. Silence is a powerful, powerful stance before the Lord. Because he already knows what you want to say to him. That's why with groanings that cannot be uttered, the Holy Spirit makes intercession for us. Because he's already ahead of us and knows anything we're going to say. English, do you think they communicate in English in heaven? Is that the language that was always there and now we kind of adopted it here? It's cardionosis. It's not even language that is spoken. It's the knowing of the heart. There's this incredible, beyond the speed of light, communication speed. So he already knows all the things that we could say. So if we choose silence and we want relationship, just relationship, truly my soul waits silently before the Lord, for he alone is my salvation, David said. He learned this principle, and he even commands his soul and says, soul, wait silently before the Lord, for he alone is your salvation. He commands his spirit, commands his soul to be silent. That's a position of strength. It's what Peter didn't understand when he saw the cloud and he saw Moses and Elijah appear next to Yeshua, right? And what does he say? Let's build. Like, he opens his mouth and wants to go into a building program. Obviously never been in one. To want to build 3 tabernacles on top of a mountain. And the voice came and said, this is my beloved son, hear him. If I could put it this way, allow me. This is my beloved son, hear him. Not him. You see, he was so quick to speak, wasn't he? Peter, all the time, always quick to say something. And do you know those people that no matter what happens, they're the ones that are always going to say something? Ever been in a staff meeting? I'm venting now. Where there's always one person that is going to just say, anybody have any comments? They're always going to be the first one to say something. And it's always going to be the same thing. Okay, I feel better now. Silence. Waiting. posturing ourselves before Him to pursue relationship without any strings attached. I just want to be with you, Yahweh. Father, I love to be with you. I'm coming to this weekend to grow in relationship with you. If nothing else happens, if no other relationships are cultivated, even if this marriage doesn't grow, just to be with Him is worth it for me. That's why I so appreciate times of worship like we've had this morning, where we can engage and we can go in to the heart of our Father, because that's when the relationship is cultivated, out of which come all the other relationships that we're growing and developing. It's everything. Wait, be still, even be silent, get well, and then get back. We were in times of such brokenness where I remember times when I would literally just take one grain of rice at a time to eat, because I was so not interested in food. Do you understand? Like brokenness, depression hit me during this one season because there was so much coming at us and against us. And there was one day when I just saw this tiny ray of light shining on me in the Spirit, and I opened my mouth and I said, wait till I return. Like, I'm going to come back, and I'm going to come back so much stronger. And I have, and so have you. And if you haven't, you will. Because that's the amazing thing about this Father that has created us in this kingdom that we're a part of, that those who persevere come back stronger. You should be really glad I'm not a pilot, because I'm terrible at landings. I feel like I'm done with this session. I want to pray something and maybe give opportunity for some silence. Father, we submit ourselves to the process of restoration and reconciliation for every relationship that has not gone the way we expected it, and even the way it was meant to go. We submit ourselves to the truth of your word, that you work all things for the good of those who love you and are called according to your purposes. Let there be a restorative work that begins in every heart and every life. Let there be a renewal of hope and faith in relationship, be it in marriage, in business associations, in owner to client, owner to staff member, owner to employee, employee to employer, in all these relationships, entrepreneur to industries, business entities to markets. Let there be a restoration of hope, of faith, because of your amazing capacity to restore and to make better what was before. We thank you, Father, for your faithfulness. We present ourselves in this realm, that prayer, this space that you have carved out on the earth at Cedar Creek Resort, where your glory will abide, where the angels will be active and very involved in the lives, where the seven spirits of God are honored and welcomed and are tutoring and counseling your children to grow as sons on the earth. We present ourselves here in silence, and we wait before you. Let's do that just for a few moments.